did the colonists fight in the Revolutionary War?
Oh, God. In the Revolutionary War?
It was, I don't know if this is right. I mean, it sounds so stupid. Was it the Spanish?
Wait, what are your majors?
Business. Biology.
Okay.
Elementary education.
Oh. What shape is the U.S. Pentagon building?
Isn't it just a square?
How many U.S. senators are there?
6, 7. 6, 7.
How many amendments are in the Bill of Rights?
There's a lot. I know 17.
Who won the Civil War?
Oh shoot, it's East or West, right?
Well, it's the Civil War, so it's the civilians versus whoever was in power.
How many justices are on the Supreme Court?
Justices. So like when you say that, like you mean like the FBI?
Who is on the $100 bill?
Oh, I know that.
Abraham Lincoln?
Nope.
Abraham Lincoln.
Come on, bro.
That's the First Amendment. What's the second?
Right to vote.
Name 3 states that border Canada. We'll just do one per person.
Asia.
I didn't know Canada had a border.
Who did the...
Spring break, spring break. Spring break. Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. We're on the 4 Liberty Network. How you doing, guys? Kim McCurry, 2 days in a row? To what do we owe the pleasure? What's up, Quest Fanning? Pamela K. Jones. Pamela. Jose, MMA, L-Dubs, Kermode, BB for Liberty, Southcott checking in from the Isle of Alderney, T-Mill 22, Andy Opperman, Bruce Burtwhistle, we got everybody we need. Oh, Will Run Riot, you made it in just in time. What's up, Dad Bod Baboon? Don't forget, everybody, click that like button here and show your love. If today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, we hope we'll earn your follow. The guy was asked about the Civil War, and he had a 50-50 chance. East or West, North versus South. We got a problem. George is getting upset. Let's talk about diets. Are diets racist? Apparently, a new body of literature of scholars have emerged to tell us all that diets apparently are racist. If so, then I'm the least racist man alive. Yeah. Do the truffle shuffle, AP. Guys want a truffle shuffle, huh? No truffle shuffle? No truffle shuffles? Helping freedom. Good to see ya. Ashley Ann. Glad everybody's here. Gather round for I have news. It's spring break. I hope some of you guys are enjoying it. A lot of people have spring break at different times. Some people were saying they had spring break last week. Some people are saying spring break is this week. I never celebrate spring break because I've always been too poor. Let's just go to Cozumel. Let's go to... I remember like my first pangs of jealousy in, I think it was middle school. I'm pretty sure that my peers in middle school, like I was like 8th grade was when they started doing them. Like they're 14 or 15 years old and their parents are sending them to like Cancun and stuff. And I was just Cancun? What is Cancun? I never heard of this Cancun place. And then, once you're in high school, spring break rolls around, all the rich kids, like they go to Cancun and they were I remember like them telling me stories about them getting drunk and they're like 15, 16, 17 years old. And I'm just like, your parents? My parents would kill me if they've had like, but the popular kids and rich kids frequently tend to be the same group, of course. Their parents, they just didn't care. They would it's like that movie Mean Girls where Amy Poehler's character comes in and is like, I'm not a regular mom. I'm a cool mom. You know the type, right? Did you have a permissive mom? If so, were your parents rich? Or did you have a poor and strict parents? Poor, strict parents. I say poor, but I mean, it wasn't like we were living in a van down by the river. Whitey White 14, you pull white trash, says literally everything is racist to them. You search racist and the noun articles will come up. They really hate white peoples. Whitey White 14, your name is Whitey White 14. Aren't you like a white supremacist? How are you going to be like... Now, it is true that they say racist too much, but I mean, aren't you the problem there? Because aren't you the racist? I mean, like, I'm trying to fling that label around too much, but I mean, like, come on, Whitey White, you know, like, you're the guy that the left, like, was like, oh, this is the people on the, they called Mitt Romney racist, right? And you should have been, like, out there saying, no, it's me, call me the racist, I'm the racist. That's you, not me, you, not me. Everyone's a little bit racist. It's okay as long as it's in a Broadway musical. Anything that's been said or done in a Broadway musical should be allowed to be said or joked about. That's why I think it's so important for conservatives and libertarians to get into the arts, because if you can't speak the language of the left, and if you can't like appreciate in some way the cultural institutions that have been created, unfortunately, largely by the left in this country, then how are we going to push back against wokeism in the arts, right? So if you can sing Springtime for Hitler, then they can call you Hitler all day long. But if you can start singing every hotsy totsy Nazi come and cheer, hi on myself, right? If you can do the gay Hitler in a crowd of people who are like, racist, 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 then you're going to turn all the musical theater fans, a lot of gay dudes, they're all going to be on your side. And listen, you don't need all of the left. If you can get the gay men on your side, right-wingers, I don't care if you hate them and think they could burn in hell forever. If you get the gay men on your side, they will be your secret warriors. What do you think all those gay warriors, Greek warriors, and Alexander, the Macedonians, he wasn't actually gay. The Greeks, that was the overexerted. Here comes the Catholic Church with the Inquisition. They weren't actually all that gay. Those Greeks were gayer than a $3 bill. The first you should respect this, white nationalists. The first misogynists were the gay dudes. Misogyny. They hated women, but they didn't really hate women. They kind of, well, I guess you could say they hated women because they thought women were like, you know, obviously lower than men. They're like deformed men. Remember the Greeks? The gay old Greeks. Anybody remember the gay old Greeks? I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there who remembers the gay old Greeks. But no, you need the gay men on your side. For confirmation, watch Eddie Izzard, the cross-dresser, before it was cool, his live stand-up in San Francisco, when he talks about it. Another good reason why it's probably not a good idea to kick the transgenders out of the military, because everybody knows that winning a battle is all about the elements of surprise. And what could be more surprising than the first transvestite brigade? Oh, bloody hell, look at these guys. Oh, look at the makeup. Oh, hell, they've got guns. Watch Eddie Izzard, Dressed to Kill. Very funny stand-up. If you're not the type of person who's like, oh, my God, I can't watch a man in a dress, then you might just be a brutal American. Are you a brutal American? I'm not. But no, I actually kind of am. I realize this too whenever I get around people who aren't of my ideological, whenever I step outside my bubble, which, you know, when you live in Jefferson City, Missouri, you live in a red state, you live in a red county, right? Everybody's conservative except for people who live in the city districts of Jefferson City, Missouri proper. I'm outside the districts of the capital city, if you will. And everybody believes in, you know, conservatism or liberty. I'm kind of like right to the right of a lot of the people even here in some ways. But when you get outside your bubble, ask yourself, do you fit in? Are you a brutal American? The Atlantic posted a piece, which I thought was interesting, especially in juxtaposition to this other article that I'm really excited to share with you this morning. If I had seen this before today, I would have booked him to be on the show. His name's Daniel McCarthy. He wrote a piece. It's this cautionary piece over in the New York Post. And the title is, Trump the Dealmaker Must Learn That Nationalism Cuts Both Ways, or He'll Risk Wrecking His Presidency. And I don't want to get too much into ideological, nail picking here, but if you don't know much or anything about Daniel McCarthy, right, if you won't take it from me because I'm, maybe not a member of whatever political tribe that you ascribe to. Maybe I am. I'm sure most of you, you're probably common thinkers like myself to a large extent. But Daniel McCarthy is what calls himself not a high Tory, but a Whig Tory. I guess there's low Tories and there's high Tories, and Daniel McCarthy is more of like a low Tory in a sense, like an old Whig in a way, right? And we call them paleo-cons, paleo-conservatives. At least that's the closest equivalent in the United States to what Daniel McCarthy might be called. But even still, he sort of defies definition in some ways. And I find as I get older, ideologically, what I think, I more and more defy definition as well. I mean, to me, libertarianism has always just been like the closest polarization of what it is that I believe. You know, do I have some overlap with conservatism? Yes. Do I have some overlap with liberalism? Absolutely. But where do I fall myself? The closest you could say to me is a libertarian. And for Daniel McCarthy, the closest that you might say is a paleo-conservative, who is one of the editors of the American Conservative magazine, which is more the Pat Buchanan paleo-conservative, wing of the Republican Party. And when he writes a piece cautioning Trump about things that I have been cautioning Trump about, I think people will hopefully sit up and listen a little bit more closely to some of the arguments that Daniel McCarthy has made in his piece in the New York Post, because if you don't take it from me, because you're like, oh, Austin is only an ideologue who just is opposed to tariffs because he's just a brainwashed ideologue, and sometimes tariffs are good for, we should raise the taxes on people and not cut the income tax, but we'll raise double the taxes and everything will go up, and when the market goes down, we'll find an excuse to say. No, if you won't take it from me, because you're like, oh, he's an ideologue, right, you take it from Daniel McCarthy, a paleo-conservative who wrote a cautionary piece in the New York Post about the challenges that Trump is facing and some of the dangers of the traps that Trump may be falling into. Remember, we've got 6 months to make this work, to get an agenda across. And then the Republicans, there's no making America great again once the gears start to get gummed up. And I mean, thankfully so far, the Trump administration has been staying out ahead of most things, but they've made some stumbles. The Epstein files, anyone? Pam Bondi, right? The release of the Epstein files. I think even the JFK files, right? The way that it's been handled has not been handled appropriately. And we've got another scandal with the Secretary of Defense somehow allowing an author from the worst, most hardcore leftist rag in existence in a group chat, Signal group chat. Secretary of Defense and the Vice President are having these conversations in a third party, in an app that they think is encrypted, but somehow they've allowed in a reporter from The Atlantic, this Jeffrey Goldberg character. It's a mess, right? And these things can get you bogged down, right? So we've got to look out for the traps. And I don't want to hear from things where people are like, oh, you're just a naysayer or anything like that. No. Like, remember, I'm on the team. Make America great again. I'm looking out for you, right? If I'm warning you about the things in your path, it's because you're a lumbering brute. It's because you're a brutal American who prefers aesthetics of your brute force without the brains, right? You can't have your fighting done by morons. You got to have your fighting done by people. You need the nerds, right? And Daniel McCarthy is a conservative nerd. Says Trump, the deal maker, must learn that nationalism cuts both ways or risk wrecking his presidency. We're going to talk about that. Maybe I'll invite him on if I think that this is a story that has legs. And this article, of course, at least the reason that I'm sharing with you, is inspired in part by an article that a lot of conservatives were flexing over, the rise of the brutal American. This is how the bad guys act, says Ann Applebaum, which was widely panned, and many a GIF was posted or a tweet was posted that contained images of brutal Americans, many right-wingers celebrating the idea of being a brutal American. And while I definitely identify with the aesthetics of John Wayne and many of the other American heroes that were posted as being brutal Americans, while I can identify very strongly with this, I would caution that we be careful about overreach, overstepping, and creating enemies that don't need to be created. Some of the biggest mistakes that I made in my political career was picking the wrong enemies. And that is one lesson that as a young person, it's hard to understand without actually experiencing it. But these are the advice and tips that I give to people who are younger activists and things like that, especially, Daniela and Brian and Jordan, as I try and mentor them and help them to, be more successful I really do try and mentor people, and there's even a state rep friend of mine who, brand new to Jefferson City here, and I try and just say things like, listen more than you talk, and this will help you to not make the wrong enemies. And when it's time, you have to. People will say, "Well, you have to have enemies," as Winston Churchill said. It is true. But you want to choose your enemies. You want to pick your enemies, right? You don't want it to be an accident who your enemies are. And you certainly don't want to make enemies with people who should be your allies. And you don't want to be fighting constantly with people that you really shouldn't be fighting with, because it distracts from the main chance. It distracts you from the main chance, which is what we must focus on. We have so little time. And we can be distracted by cultural issues. We can be distracted by, dumb college students on spring break you don't even know how many Supreme Court justices or senators there are. I mean, I could forgive them for not knowing that specific number, but not knowing that the Civil War was fought between the North and South and saying that it was fought between the East and West is a little... even that, it's got to make the Wake Up America show. We're going to have Camelia Peterson on the show. She's going to be on with us a little bit earlier than usual this morning. Tim Pool thinks the leak was fake. Tim Pool thinks a lot of things. And sometimes I'm looking at Tim Pool's 50-50 for me. I'll see something that Tim Pool says, and I think he's trolling maybe 25% of the time. So I kind of have to know, when should I be taking him seriously? Sometimes it's hard. I'm sure people do the same thing with me because I make jokes and I can be sarcastic. But Tim Pool, it's 1/3 hit, 1/3 miss, 1/3 he's trolling. So you have to be careful about that. Don't forget about the bonus content today, guys. We missed a good one yesterday. Thank you, Brad. Glad to have you here, Wizard Greg. We're gonna get Camelia Peterson in here at 7:30 a.m. Central Time, and I'm looking forward to talking to her about this story that I brought up yesterday for the first time, which is the women age 20 to 40 deciding not to get married. And I had that conversation with John Miltimore, and I feel like the ladies felt like they were underrepresented, but that's why Camelia is on this show twice a week. We must hear from the ladies. We must have the girls' perspective on here. It's not fair. You got Kim McCurry over there in the chat. I'm sure there's maybe one other chica. All the ladies in the chat, give us the heart emojis or kissy faces. Let us know. Gender yourselves, wenches. Just kidding. We love you, ladies. But the ladies felt underrepresented by the conversation yesterday, and that's fair, right? It's not like women to talk about politics on news podcasts don't just fall out of the ether. You realize, there's a lot that goes into making something like this happen. The interview that we're going to do about 7 or 8 minutes from now with Camelia Peterson. So if you can you bless me with something?
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise?
Please help to unlock the bonus content today, guys. Let's get it started. Some Rumble rants now will pay off later, so we don't get to the end of the show and it's we didn't get it. But if you can't do a Rumble rant over on Rumble, a lot of people I don't want to open up my wallet and give my credit card information to Rumble. I totally get it. You should just give it straight to me. Well, yes and no, but yes. Just go to forlibertyshop.com, guys. I have got my Gulf of America towels ordered and on the way, and I can't wait for them to get here. They are super plush, super soft. I'm really excited about the towels. We're thinking about going big into towels this year because everyone's just buying our Gulf of America towels like they're going out of style. They're not going out of style. They're in style. They're ahead of style. So if you get one now, everybody's going to see it this summer and be like, God, I wish I had a Gulf of America towel. Only a few cool, elite, brutal Americans will have Gulf of America towels. Where can I get the Gulf of America towels, Austin? You go to forlibertyshop.com. Now, here's the good thing. If you're listening to me live, you're one of the 106 to 150 odd people wherever who are listening to the Wake Up America show live this morning. The good news is that you can go to forlibertyshop.com right now and get it. Get a Gulf of America towel. Get a box of my founding flavors coffee. It's delicious. And get like Quest Fanning. He says, I'm a boy and I have a penis. Boys have a penis. Girls have a vagina. Thank you, Quest. Thanks for the $2 drop to the tip jar. We're going to talk to Camelia Peterson about the trend of women not getting married. Then she had to come on early this morning instead of her usual 8 a.m. time slot. So we're going to switch to this cultural topic, and then I'm going to switch back to the Atlantic piece to talk about what it means to be a brutal American. And the second hour will be a million billion clips I've got some fun. I've got some funny. Don't go away. I'm going to go get Camellia, and we're going to talk about marriage. Marriage is the thing that brings us together today. Go shopping. Drop some rants. We got to hit $75 by the end of the show, or that's it. We're canceled. It's over. No more Wake Up America show. We're done.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon...
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show, and we're on the 4 Liberty Network. Glad and thankful to have you here. Thank you, L-Dubs, for that Rumble rant, brother. We're on our way to unlock the bonus content for today. If we hit $75 raised by the end of the show, you will unlock the bonus content. If you don't, it goes away forever, and you'll have to wait till tomorrow to get another chance to see what we've got cooked up for you. But it's a secret. You can't get it unless you unlock it. If you've got the key to my heart, head to 4libertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Only one girl has the key to my heart. When I found the right one, I settled down and I married her. Thank God she was interested in marriage, because I tell you, I had some girlfriends that kind of was shocking how little they were interested in getting married. And I was like, well, I'm a guy, and I'm interested in getting married, but man, I can tell you, dudes, it's not that they're not interested. They're not into you at all. They're into their careers. They're into spring break. All they do is charge their phones, eat hot chip, and lie. Welcome to the Wake Up America show, Camellia Peterson. It's a meme, not you, Camellia. It's not you. You don't eat hot chip and lie. You do. You eat hot chip, but
yeah, no lie.
no lie. Looking very professional, Camellia Peterson.
Doing those, dirty lobbyist things and, but hey, working for the people, am I right?
It's just amazing to think about your transformation from like country farm girl, Mennonite farm girl out in the woods to lobbyist in Jefferson City. Glad to have you here, Camellia. Thanks for taking some time. I know you're super busy this morning, so let's get to the news. Growing trend among American women increasingly opting out of marriage or resigning themselves to singlehood. There's demographic shifts. They want economic independence. And of course, I think the big story in this is the diverging values between men and women. Our genders, our sexes, we have different values now. This is a big problem, Camellia.
It is, and I don't, this is so multifaceted. There's so many different aspects to this that sometimes it's hard to know where to start. And I think that we're sort of in a, as far as the gender war and gap and everything else, we're sort of in a vicious cycle in that, with feminism and women being told that they could work and have it all and be completely happy with it all. You had this delay in relationships with people, plus with a really mobile society, people are not forming relationships in the same way anymore. And so you're not just meeting your potential boyfriend or girlfriend through other friends or at work or through those kind of church, school, those kind of relationships. A lot of people are meeting online, and I know we have friends that have met online through dating apps and have been successful and gotten married, and that's worked for them. But I think that's the exception rather than the rule. And so I think that has so changed the dynamics of relationships with that online dating app culture that it has really skewed a lot of this. And so you do have, women who I was just watching something this morning that talked about how that women are becoming more masculine in their behavior, and it is part of this, I can have it all. And, so they're behaving in a more promiscuous, like there have always been promiscuous women, right? Just like there are promiscuous men, but it used to be a shameful thing for a woman to be promiscuous. And it's really not anymore.
It still is. Let's be honest. It still is shameful. Just because they don't feel shame doesn't mean they shouldn't be ashamed.
Sure.
They just don't.
Right. I'm just it's just not as societally condemned, right? I mean,
yes.
So it's become more normalized.
Yeah, that's my one. That's my one double standard. Real quick, I'll let you finish, and I'll just say that's my one double standard is that women should be ashamed and men should not. But go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I know about that double standard. But no, I just think that the dynamics of this are all turned inside out from what we're used to. And the other thing too is that I think that really our society has advanced so quickly, just technologically, that plays a big role here, because the kids today, their parents are like just trying to keep up with them. They don't learn how to use these things and do these things from their parents per se. It's the other way around. And so there is everybody's just kind of blindly feeling their way out. And then when you combine, feminism and everything else with it, and I think that, we are kind of in that backlash period where people are starting to recognize the detrimental effects of that going too far. But what do you do with it now? That's the big question. You're not going to go back. So how do we create a new dynamic and kind of find some of those more traditional roles too?
The question is, how do we either liberate men or put women back in the bottle? Here's another narrative that we have to deal with. Women outpace men in education and early career success, creating a mismatch in dating pools. Educational and economic disparities strain compatibility. Women are doing comparatively well, and men are doing comparatively badly. 47% of women aged 25 to 34 had a bachelor's degree in 2024 versus 37% of men, 10% less. A bachelor's degree boosts lifetime earnings by $1 million. Marriage rates for non-college educated women dropped from 79% to 52% by age 45 for those born around 1930 to 1980. So men's economic struggles, especially among the non-college educated, shrink the pool of marriageable partners for women across class lines. So in other words, hypergamy, this concept that we've talked about, women wanting to marry or date up, it's a massive gap in the pool of available. I mean, Camelia, you must know, I mean, as a single woman, the pool of available men is small and getting smaller, is it not?
Sure, I think so. I also think it probably depends on what stage of life you're in. But here's the other thing that I think has really impacted this in a way that we don't talk about enough is that marriage has become, it's evolved over the last, even 100 years to become a convenience, not a necessity. And so, and we came to like, we really romanticize, and I'm not saying that there's necessarily anything completely wrong with this, but we romanticized marriage to the point that, we're finding our soulmate and the person who completes us. And we have an expectation that, I mean, you say, okay, well, it's a 50-50 relationship. Well, it's really not. It's a 100-100 relationship is what it needs to be. And you don't get into a relationship to have somebody else, I mean, fill in the things that you're, like your weaknesses. We do, have complementary relationships and that's good. But it's this idea that, we need somebody else to complete us and there's only that one person meant for us and all those kind of things. So I think that in itself has set us up for failure. I mean, in a lot of ways, as far as, long-term relationships, there are pros and cons to both things, right? Because, we also came from an age when marriage was a necessity for survival for a woman. And, you women didn't have choices.
Right.
And so it's, I don't know, like
could you understand how, someone like myself, who of course believes in individualism and individual liberty, is concerned about the potential rise of authoritarianism because of the newly found economic and political power of women, which is, of course, to put a stereotype on your gender, you tend to be more authoritarian in your political views. And that's because of a frailty concerning your emotional access to your emotional state. In other words, some computers have security protocols to protect against suicidal empathy being used to convince someone to commit suicide. Diverging worldviews was a very important part of this discussion. Political and value gaps. 39% of women aged 18 to 29 identified as liberal in 2024 versus 25% of men, a gap that tripled since 2014. In other words, in the last 10 years, females have become monsters of socialism and communism. And one has to wonder, when people tell me to calm down on this stuff, or they detect an edge, right? It's not a hatefulness other than a hate for socialism and communism. And the fair sex seems easily exploited by malign worldviews. I even see a lot of female Nazis out there, and it's kind of like, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't, I think that is one of the differences between men and women is I think women are more vulnerable to appeals to emotion. That's not always a negative, right? I think there are many times that is a strength for women as well. However, when you look at that gap and you look at how many women are, going to the extreme, as you said, suicidal empathy end of this, I mean, what's behind that? And we've talked about this before a little bit, but I do think we have to come back to the role of dads in their daughters' lives. And I think, women that I meet, even young girls right now that I meet that have their head in the right place and they think well and clearly and critically, they have dads who are active in their lives, and maybe it's not always a traditional family, but their dads are still very engaged and involved, because we've talked before about the importance of fathers in all children's lives, but I think especially in relation to this, I think that having a dad who's really active in feeding those things into a daughter is what kind of helps her build up some of that resistance, maybe to sort of that natural inclination.
Some women embrace singlehood as empowering. Others see it as a fallback. Melissa Kearney was quoted in this article, warns that many settle for Plan B due to a lack of suitable partners. Is this trend liberation or resignation? Over 50% of single women in a 2024 AEI survey said they're happier than their married peers. But these stories of these women that they're interviewed, they don't sound happy. Could it be that women might be lying, saying they're happy, but really on the inside, they're actually quite miserable?
I think we're all very good. I mean, we lie to ourselves better than anybody else, right? So I think that that's certainly possible. I mean, who wants to believe that they are not enjoying their life? I think everybody's going to do their best to be happy where they are. So you don't want to admit that, look, my choices have made me miserable. But yeah, I mean, is it kind of overcompensation? Maybe. I mean, maybe some people really are happier. I don't know. I mean, maybe their friends are, friends who are in marriages that are not working well, and they look at that and see that think that's not, worth the hassle, right? I'm happier like this. But I do think in real life, there are very, very few women that you would talk to and who would tell you that they would rather be single than anything else, that they would rather be alone. Now, I say like single, okay, but how many, we've got hookup culture. However, I say we have hookup culture, but one of the things talked about in this article was that, Gen Z is having sex less, which is kind of ironic given we've gone from, abstinence culture of the 80s and 90s, and we kind of like went way back the other way, and now we are sort of going back the other way, but it's not necessarily because of religion.
It's not. It's an interesting how, so much of secular society is dominant, and we live online in very many ways, so we see like sort of like the fads of trads, if you will. But I don't really see that reflected much more broadly in like the legislature or like the conversations like that are going on necessarily. I mean, you're in Missouri, so obviously you're traditional, but I'm sure like Camelia, you're savvy. You probably detect the secularism of what goes on in the Capitol, right? Most of the religious discussion that's going on over there is for show, is it not?
I mean,
performative.
It certainly feels that way sometimes. That's kind of one of my personal gripes, is people who use their faith as a tool for political purposes. But yeah, I mean, it certainly happens. I mean, you'll get people, talking about it on the floor of the Senate or the House or whatever. And okay, yeah, there are a lot of people who are coming from a very genuine place with that. But yeah, it is certainly something that is used, and it depends, on where you are. Like, that if you are in Southwest Missouri, people want to know what your denomination is, where you go to church. They want to know your transformation story. That on the other side of the state, completely different. Like,
I see a face poking out there in the back. Who is that over there? Who is that?
That's Chris Yadis.
I think I know that. Chris Yadis, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody say hello.
Hi,
Well, welcome to the Wake Up America show. There's another true patriot and freedom fighter. These are the good ladies of liberty of Missouri who are doing us all a favor right now while we hang out in our Jimmy Jams and drink cappuccinos. Camelia and Chris Yadis are out there fighting for our liberties. Everybody stand up. Now, ladies, I gotta say, it's good to see that you're politically active. I'm jealous. I wish more young men were as politically active as young women. I wish more young men were as as desirous of succeeding and of being financially independent as the women are, because honestly, when you show up to political meetings these days, Camille, I'll tell you, look, there's another lady of liberty. It's the women folk who are out there who are leading the charge in a lot of these political rallies and a lot of these political meetings, are they not?
It's true. And this has been talked about for a while, is that when you talk about if you want to get people to come out to volunteer for political things, the vast majority of the people you are going to get to do that are going to be women, which is not entirely surprising, just in the fact that we've talked before that, when you talk about volunteering and charitable work and organizations and things like that, that a lot of the time, because of traditional gender that husband who's been out there earning the bread, right? and making it possible for her to do that. But yeah, I will say though, being in the Capitol a lot, there are certainly a lot of women here, but it is still largely a man's game.
That's good though, right? Isn't that good? Isn't that what we need?
I'm fine. I'm totally fine with that. Yeah, no, it's been kind of funny because there's been a senator who has talked about in the upcoming election cycle that in our Senate makeup right now, I think there are 3 women in the Senate and 2 of them are termed out. And, there was a comment made by one of them. I'm sorry, there's four women. But anyway, one of them was saying that, there were no women candidates coming up, and that was a shame that I'm like, we don't do that DEI here. Let's not. I mean, we want the most qualified candidate. I don't care if they're a man or a woman. And now we're losing another woman in the Senate, so she's going to be all by herself if she doesn't find some women candidates.
Hey, Camellia, thanks so much for freedom fighting. Tell Kathy and Chris Yaddis I said hello, and thank you to those lovely ladies of liberty, because you do defy the stereotype of the socialist, feminist, progressive, AOC, bra burning feminists. You're out there standing up for our freedom, and we men who out here and the women in the chat, we all salute you. Thank you, Camellia.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Well, I think that there is hope yet. I'm not black-pilled about all of this. I think that there is hope for young women, and I think I see that a lot in Gen Z and younger. I think they have a different perspective on things because they are the generation, like we've talked about before, that's grown up with this, so they're more acclimated to this digital culture and all of the things that come with it. And so I am hopeful.
I am too. With people like you out there, Camellia, I'm much more hopeful. Thank you for your time.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a good one. Is it bad for society that average-looking women find a majority of average-looking men unattractive? So here's a picture. Here's a video you can see right here. This is a girl who went viral. Now, if we put this girl next to her male equivalent, she would be in shambles. What would you rate her looks out of 10?
This is for the girlies that always have another guy. Not always have another guy. Maybe I should reword that, but have someone attractive that they're hooking up with, and then they stop that, and then they have someone else, and where are you finding these fucking men? Because on the dating apps, everyone's fucking ugly. I'm sorry. Everybody's fucking ugly. Not going out to bars, so I'm not meeting people there, and even if I was going out to bars, those are not the men I want to meet. The gym, no one fucking talks to you. I have resting bitch face, so nobody's coming my way. No one's talking to me. So where are we meeting these men that are actually attractive? Because everywhere I look, it's ugly, ugly, ugly. There are so many attractive women, and there's so many unattractive men. I'm sorry.
That is not an accident that she would say that, right? Now, whatever podcast asks, is it bad for society that average-looking women find a majority of average-looking men? You may say, oh, no, she's a pretty girl. Right, that's the thing, is that you are under the spell, right? That's the problem. Most men find most women attractive. Most women find most men to be ugly. Somebody did an AI gender swap on that girl that you were just looking at, who said that she finds most men ugly. Do you think she would date her looks equivalent? Everybody in the chat. More attractive women than attractive men, she says. Do you think that if she saw this guy if this guy came to talk to her, that she would be attracted to this man, right? That she would be attracted to this man, right? And I think you all know the answer. Okay. Why is it like that? We're going to talk about the story that I opened or that I wrote for the intro today. What does it mean to be a brutal American? But first, this other story I think bears mention. Don't forget, guys, let's unlock that bonus content today. If you enjoy those kinds of conversations between Camille and myself, help support the For Liberty Network. The bonus content is very important in helping us to keep the lights on over here and to keep the Wake Up America show strong. So donate those Rumble rants today or go to forlibertyshop.com. At the front page of forlibertyshop.com right now, Brad has already put up the spring summer collection. So check out all the beach towels, tank tops, and more fun over at forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4 libertyshop.com. And if we hit $75 either in sales or in Rumble rants, either one, they all combine together, then you will unlock today's bonus content before the show is over. So go ahead, drop a deuce. 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Diets.
The same diets as white women, we lose less weight and we lose it slower, even when we're following the diet, than our white women counterparts. It's literally that the racism that you're experiencing and the struggle to make ends meet actually means the diet don't work for you the same.
Interesting. Okay. Well, diets are the type of thing that can be highly individualized, but I think it's pretty much a fact that if you burn more calories than you eat, in other words, stop eating, you will lose weight. If you eat less food, or if you could eat lots of food. You could eat lots of food. It just has to be the right kind of food. You could eat a lot of celery, for example. You eat a lot of celery. You could eat a lot of anything that is extremely low calorie. You can eat a lot of cottage cheese. You can eat a lot of vegetables, some fruits. A lot of fruits have a lot of sugar. But here's the thing. Diet culture, right? The argument that it's rooted in racist ideologies, I mean, why is it that this is always the go-to, right? This is my concept that I talk about in this show quite frequently. These are people who have a high external locus of control. Okay, this is the conspiracy mindset here. You see, it's the Jews' reasons that I'm black. No, it's the Jews who made you black, lady. No, Whitey White's like, yeah, I believe that one. No, it's the white people's fault. That's why I'm fat. If the white people were to give me, do you think if you gave her a diet that was tailored to the black, I mean, actually went down and broke down the science and chemistry and gave this woman and said, here it is. Here's your black woman diet. Do you think that this woman would follow that diet?
The same diets as white women, we lose less weight and we lose it slower, even when we're following the diet, than our white women counterparts. It's literally that the racism that you're experiencing and the struggle to make ends meet actually means the diet don't work for you the same. The same diets as white women. I don't know. I always trust somebody. The diet don't work for me for you the same. I would always, yes, I would trust. I would put someone like that on television. Posts on X, which sent this video viral, have talked about books like Fearing the Black Body by Sabrina Strings. Yes, there's some scholarship here, which argues that, shoddy scholarship, which argues that during the transatlantic slave trade, we hear about it every day, European colonists associated fatness with blackness, framing it as a sign of gluttony and inferiority, while thinness was tied to white self-control and moral superiority. It's true. Yes. If only those black people knew.
Historical narratives from the 18th and 19th centuries in women's magazines pushed slimness as an ideal of Nordic beauty. Yes, it is beautiful. Reinforcing racial hierarchies, this legacy persists in modern beauty standards that often align with white norms. Why does everybody Aryan? Aryans are Indians, aren't they? I mean, isn't that what Goebbels, not Goebbels, isn't that what Himmler found out when he went to India? What was that secret trip that he did? Was it to Iran, or was it Iranians or India? The Aryans, they're not even white people like we think of them these days. Anyways, Aryan beauty. Everybody wants to look like Jeet. Pajit. Diets disproportionately fail black women, she argues. She says that the black women lose less weight and at a slower rate than white women, even on the same plans. Are you suggesting it's not tabula rasa, it's in your genes? Diets, they disproportionately fail black women. A specific quote on X that was circulating says, "We lose less weight and we lose it slower, even when we're following the diet of our white women counterparts." The racial disparities in health outcomes, I think, can't be denied. There are disparities in health outcomes between the races, but could it be that they might be tied closer to something like personal choices? I mean, this question really does put sort of everybody on their back foot, because it's like nature nurture debate, right? The super Nazi, believe that you could tell the people who sent the same mindset that sent a photographer to Moscow under the Third Reich to take a picture of Joseph Stalin to see if his earlobes were Jewish. That's the same mentality that birthed this retardation. I mean, what else can you call it? I mean, so is it nature? 100%? One drop rule? Is it nurture? 100%? Or is it, let's see, the identitarians all face challenges and struggles when it comes to topics like these. Nature versus nurture, genetics versus personal choice, right? And of course, what do people do, especially identitarians and everybody, but confirm their biases, which is to use whatever argument suits whatever belief that they want to justify at that time. The Black Women's Health Study links racial discrimination to higher obesity rates among African American women, suggesting that stress and systemic factors play a role. Studies also show black women have higher BMI averages, 4 out of 5 classified as overweight or obese compared to other groups. But weight loss interventions are less effective. So are diets racist by design? So what is it? Tabula rasa? Right? Blank slate? Or, can you teach someone how to eat less? I mean, isn't it really just more likely that the overabundance, the lack of a calorie deficit in this country, and the more sedentary nature of our society, people don't have, you don't have to go out and pick cotton anymore, lady. You don't have to do. The slaves were fatter. How could they have been fatter when they had to work, of course, to build the country? How could you be fat and have built all of America? Austin, you're going to hell for this one. I don't know if even L-Dubs can bail you out of this one. Might as well just drop the N-word. No, but the concept of diets being racist, I mean, they discriminate officially against you. I mean, listen, in my mind, it's no question. It's a matter of how many calories are you taking in versus how many you're burning. Has anybody here ever had a successful diet? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this story or any of the other stories we're talking about today. Maybe you have a question for me. You can send us a text at 573-319-1506. Oh my God, we have 1586, excuse me. There are a lot of flippin' text messages here on the Wake Up America show. Make sure that you guys are writing down that phone number or put it in your phone, 573-319-1586. That's 319-1586. Somebody sent me an article from The Atlantic and asked me to read it. I will definitely check it out. One friend over here who's joined us says, watching a little late this morning, the McGroin crew is part of the Bongino Army. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. McGroin. Don't forget to click the like button, guys, and drop those Rumble Rants. We have an hour left, and I think we've raised about $20 towards the bonus content goal of $75 by the end of the show. If we hit $75, then we will unlock the bonus content, and we'd be very grateful. If you drop Rumble Rants, that's one way to unlock it. If you go to forlibertyshop.com, you can try our delicious coffee. I got an espresso machine the other day, and I'm so excited to taste my Founding Flavors coffee in like an espresso form. And the dark roasts are the ones that I recommend for that. My favorites tend to be the light roasts and the more mediums because there's more caffeine. But I do love the rich, bold flavor of our Adams's Patriotic Perk. So go to forlibertyshop.com. Support a patriotic company who's fighting the podcast business. I was telling you, I was watching this, reading this X post last night, and I don't know how interested you guys are in inside baseball. I'll tell you this. I've got a billion clips to play and discussions, and I want to talk about A Brutal American. We're going to get to that story and things like that. I hope you don't mind me going on a tangent, especially when I'm passionate about something to discuss it, if it's not necessarily the big news. Because I'll tell you honestly, there are news stories, there are things to discuss, but I'm very good at knowing when it's a slow news day, and I checked all the major periodicals today for like big earth-shattering news that really impacts your life. And when it's not there, right? But you still got to do a show and have something to talk about 2-3 hours a day, as I learned from my radio days. So I'll talk to you about things that I'm passionate about, things that affect me and that affect you as a listener. I mean, if you are here joining me live on rumble.com, congrats, you're a part of the elite. It takes a special person to get out of the bubble of the traditional apps and join a new startup video service, and then get into the app and then also be dropping comments. People like Real Science Questions, L-Dubs, Zambucas, Whitey White, Joni Rankin, Ashley Ann, Quest Fanning, and others. You're part of an elite crew because the 166 people who are over here with us live, because you had to jump through hurdles to get here and to listen to me. So that's why I think it might be interesting for you to hear this discussion about the business side of podcasting. As yesterday I had reposted this character who I think is interesting. I think his name is Fisher King over on X, and has very deep and thoughtful posts that get me thinking deeper. I don't always agree with him, but yesterday he was talking about podcasting and how it is just so oversaturated, right? And how there's so much competition for podcasts, for listeners, for readers. And it's talking about how can you make something like this work like as a business or make enough money from it. And of course that perked up my ears. I wanted to hear what he had to say about that. Why is it that I don't have his thing on my, I have to go to my replies. Give me just a moment, please. Replies. Gutting the ATF. Cash Patel. That's good. Rand Paul tweets. That's good. Here's a question for you guys. Here's a question for the chat while I find these posts. Real Science wants to get back to the main issue. How dare you? That's the point. You summed it up there. Real Science question says, losing weight is going to be hard for any individual, regardless of race, requiring a lot of discipline, which most people don't have. You did it. There it is. You summed up the entire point. Here's a question for the chat while I go and grab these series of tweets for us to discuss industry podcasting side of things. We are a 5-day-a-week show, by the way. A lot of content to produce, but of course, in order to make something like this work, you do have to do it 5 days a week. You have to treat this like a business, and that is certainly what I do. Here's a question for the chat. What's something that's absolutely worth the high price that you pay? Maybe it's an iPhone or a camera or something else. Relaxium McGroin, are you guys is that the Bongino Army? Nice. Good to see you guys. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. So the question for the chat, for the listeners, what's something that's absolutely worth the high price that you must pay? So while I go grab those, drop your answers in the chat. My dad used cheap razors his whole life. He always cut himself bloody. He was always so cheap. Then one day I left my Mach 3 in the shower and he tried it. He says, "This is the best razor I've ever used in my life." He said, "Oh my gosh, that's interesting." He deleted his post. Oh my goodness. Why would you delete that post? Oh, wow. No wonder I couldn't find it. Wow. That's it, guys. We've got a freaking mystery here. Okay. The post was deleted by the post author. So this is Fisher King, at FisherKing64 over on X, deleted the post. He was talking about how nobody can make money in podcasting. But some of the points that he brought up that I was hoping to respond to were just talking about how it's oversaturated. There's too many of them. And certainly it is. I mean, my podcast from 2013 had millions and millions of listeners because there weren't a lot of games on the street then. And now everybody is starting a podcast. Everybody's trying to do it. So my competition for the 163 people listening live, I mean, 163 people is it's a fair amount of people. And it's hard to get people to tune into podcasts and then to try and do what Stephanie and I are doing, which is making a living. It can be done, but here's my secret. And you know what the funny thing is about secrets is that they tend to look like putting on overalls and putting in a hard day's work, which is why I don't really worry too much about revealing many of my secrets for how I make this work, because it's hard work. And here's how it is. Here's how the work works. The secret to survival in this business is to apply old school sales tactics to new technology. So we run a sales call routine, just similar. And I learned how to do this when I lived in New York City, the most competitive market, the most competitive industry, which was I was selling information technology. So just computers. And everybody sells computers, right? Microsoft sells computers. We compete with Microsoft. And I had to do business-to-business sales to get people to buy big servers, huge numbers of servers, server farms, installations, all that. And I had to start from nothing, right, other than just a phone number in my Salesforce, get on the phone and call the director of information technologies, the IT directors, and convince them to get in a meeting with me and, find out if they have a project and then convince them to buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of servers and services. So I had to, get savvy on the phones. So I took those sales techniques and I applied those sales experience and strategy to this show, right? So we run sales. But instead of selling computers, right, I sell our memberships, right? We sell our products from the shop, right? And, here's the thing that the Fisher King said. He deleted this post. I bet he probably got some pushback. Here's what he probably got pushback for, because he was sort of denigrating conspiracy theories. And he was denigrating the conspiracy theory shows. And he says that it's impossible to compete with all the slop that's out there in terms of podcasting because I'm assuming he was talking about like Alex Jones and Prison Planet and InfoWars and all the guys who are always doing the conspiracy show. And there's a million conspiracy shows, right? There's a million crypto shows and Bitcoin shows and things like that. But how can you compete when people make these wild claims and accusations all the time? I mean, how can you get people to listen to a show that is straightforward, reason, logic, right? You can, there is some space for that, but it's going to get crowded out by the Lex Friedmans of the world and, the people who can get Elon Musk on their podcasts, right? And then it ends up being the same 20 people on the show all the time, right? Piers Morgan, Elon Musk, right? It becomes the same slop, right? Fisher King was talking about. And then you can't compete with people who are willing to say outrageous, wild, insane things. And, that's kind of a race to the bottom. And then how are you going to make money if you're trying to be reasonable and sane? And maybe he was complaining because perhaps he wanted to do a podcast. And I think his would have been successful. You have to understand your niche, right? But, every once in a while too, I'll cover a conspiracy topic on this show. But when I do, I see the numbers tend to spike. Right. And the only problem, of course, is if I chase that, it's like competing with Amazon. You can't compete with Alex Jones. You can't compete with InfoWars. So I don't try. Right. Don't try and compete with, even if you're in the same industry, don't compete. Make something new. Make something that no one else has. Make something, different. That's how you'll be successful in podcasting. And that was my answer to him before he deleted his post, I mean, I'm a little shocked that he deleted that. But it's not sustainable to try and chase the conspiracy shows. You cannot do it. You'll have to triple down, and you'll never outcompete the masters at it, right? You know, I mean, some people can do it, and there are certainly some new like conspiracy guys who are up and coming, but you know, they're all saying pretty much the same thing as the other conspiracy shows, right? But the real numbers, the way that this works topic wise, how am I able to sustain the Wake Up America show, right? How do I make it different? It's really the culture topics, the culture war topics, right? The discussions that Camille and I have about marriage, about these things that really matter to people, right? Straight reporting only sells when it's really, really big news, right? And that's what I bring to you. I bring to you really, really big news when it's important and we have to cover these things and talk about these topics. Otherwise, you have to niche down and you have to dominate that niche and be willing to do what others aren't able to do to be competitive. I'm willing to get on the phones. I'm willing to lead tour groups to Washington, D.C., write children's books, find coffee suppliers, brand coffee, put, slap logos on mugs and make, make America great again hats and shill my merchandise and sell. I'm willing to sell. And I think that's really the difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person is sales. I think about sales a lot. As a matter of fact, I consider myself to be a salesman, and the Wake Up America show is me trying to sell you ideas. I'm selling you on the ideas of economic freedom and limited government. And so when people say, Austin, do you have something to sell? Yes, absolutely. Right. Do I have an agenda? Absolutely. It's right up there. I don't try and obfuscate. There's no hidden agenda on the Wake Up America show. It's out in the open. And people who have known me, some of the people who watch the Wake Up America show have known me for decades. They know exactly what I'm all about. Have I changed over the years? Sure. In some ways, absolutely. That's what you're supposed to, right? Butterfly, flap its wing, and Peking. And ABC, always be closing. I have to always be thinking about sales, and that's why I have to ask.
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise. Please.
Can you suck it?
What? Do drop Rumble Rants over in the chat, guys, and support the Wake Up America show. If we hit $75 raised by the end of the show, then we will unlock the bonus content. If not, the bonus content goes away forever and ever, and we wouldn't want that to happen. So support the Wake Up America show by dropping Rumble Rants or going to forlibertyshop.com. Buy something nice from our collection before the show is over. And let us know that you want more Wake Up America show, more rational, sane, straightforward, economic freedom, personal liberty shows, networks. Show us that you want to make it happen.
A lot of people did vote for him.
Yes.
Do you accept their right to do that and their opinion of him?
Well, I respect their right to do that. I question why the first time in American history a president has won every swing state and is also best friends, and his largest donor was a man who owns and runs the internet. So I would hope that would be investigated and that we would see whether or not it was an anomaly or something else that happened on election night in America when Kamala Harris was filling up stadiums with people who supported her. And Donald Trump was not able to do that. So it's curious to me. And as an American and a believer in democracy, I would hope that we would be able to look at all of the reasons why this happened in our country.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. Rosie O'Donnell fled to Ireland, and now I hear she's actually going to be deported.
Best friends, and his largest donor was a man who owns and runs the internet.
Okay, so Elon Musk apparently owns and runs the internet? Yeah. So, I mean, Rosie O'Donnell, I mean, how could you say?
A lot of people did vote for.
I mean, how can you? Let's see, that's the same clip. Hold on there. How could you say something like that with a straight face? That he owns and runs the internet. You know what, Rosie? You're right. He does. And it's an open conspiracy. We want Elon Musk to control and run the internet. Somebody went to forlibertyshop.com. He went to Jared's. And helped us to unlock the bonus content. Now we're only $20 away from unlocking the bonus content. Guys, thanks so much. Somebody went and bought the pirate flag beach towel. Yar. Keith, we appreciate you very much out there, bud. We really appreciate your support of small businesses and small podcasts to help grow and spread the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty. Like Trump was right about everything, says the Elon Musk hat on the screen.
Well, a clear case of fraud was with the Small Business Administration, where they were handing out loans, $330 million worth of loans to people under the age of 11. I think the youngest, Kelly, was a 9-month-old who got a $100,000 loan. That's a very precocious baby we're talking about here.
Well, we're tackling the fraud, waste, and abuse in the agency. We've seen, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud go unprosecuted, so we're taking that on. We have a zero-tolerance policy for fraud, and we continue to crack down on it and make sure people are held accountable.
It's amazing. And you have a lot of that. We've found far too much of it. It's a pure fraud. We like to use the words waste and abuse because they sort of sound good, but many of these things are pure fraud. Now, there was a contract that you've heard about where Stacey Abrams got $2 billion just before we took over, and it was a...
It's amazing that, people have talked for years about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, and then when Trump actually does it, it's a problem. I meant to play this clip after the Rosie O'Donnell clip.
If you're not happy here, then you can leave. As far as I'm concerned, if you hate our country, if you're not happy here, you can leave. And that's what I say all the time. That's what I said in a tweet, which I guess some people think is controversial. A lot of people love it, by the way. A lot of people love it. But if you're not happy in the U.S., if you're complaining all the time, very simply, you can leave. You can leave right now. Come back if you want. Don't come back. It's okay, too. But if you're not happy, you can leave.
Afuera. Yes. You don't like it? Get out. Can relate, Mr. President. Can relate. Bill Maher seems to believe that the Democrats' days are done. He makes a compelling case.
California is projected to lose 3 seats.
Oh, come on. You couldn't get me a louder clip than that.
Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states.
Can you even hear that, guys?
Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. I mean, this looks like game over, and the reason why people are voting with their feet is a lot of what your book is about.
Yeah,
taxes and regulation. I certainly have been screaming about it forever. I did 3 years with a sign here that said, how long is it going to take me to get my solar hooked up? 3 years. Talking about it on television in this state. You couldn't do it. This state has almost 400,000 regulations. I just put in a new roof because the fire, I thought, let's get a roof that's not going to burn up.
All right, so let me go back and replay it so you can actually hear it. Sorry, guys. There's going to be a hiss on it because I've doubled up the gain for this stupid clip.
California is projected to lose 3 seats, New York 2, also going to lose a seat, Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states. Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. I mean, this looks like game over.
Yeah.
And the reason why people are voting with their feet is a lot of what your book is about.
Yeah.
Taxes and regulation. I certainly have been screaming about it forever. I did 3 years with a sign here that said, how long is it going to take me to get my solar hooked up? 3 years. Talking about it on television in this state. You couldn't do it. This state has almost 400,000 regulations. I just put in a new roof because the fire, I thought, let's get a roof that's not going to burn up. 2 inspections. Why are you inspecting my roof? It's my fucking roof. If it falls on me, that's my problem.
That's that libertarian in Bill. He wants out so bad. Let him out, Bill. Let him out.
And we're taxed more than any other state. People are leaving these kind of states for places where they're not, they feel the heavy breath of government on them. It's just It's not that hard.
Yep. Captain Tight Pants in the chat says, I got my solar hooked up in under 4 months. Thank you, Missouri. Yes. God bless Missouri. God bless us, every Missourian. Can you imagine 3 years? Couldn't get his solar hooked up in 3 years.
Democrats to understand this, but they seem to be incapable of doing anything about it.
So we poll this. They're leaving on cost of living. That's all part of it. They're leaving because they can't afford homes. And it's a huge, not just political problem, those numbers you just gave. After 2030, if that holds, a Democrat could win every state Kamala Harris won, win Michigan, win Pennsylvania, and I'm just blanking on the third blue wall state, win Michigan, win Pennsylvania, and win Wisconsin, and lose the presidential election, right? The blue wall would no longer be enough for them to win. And you have to take that.
You mean they could win those 3 states and still
lose the presidential? That's how bad it is, right? Wow. And that's because they are driving people out, working class families out.
Yeah, well, COVID-19 accelerated the trend that was already occurring, the U-Haul trend of people moving out of blue states to red states, hopefully not voting for blue state policies in those red states. Don't you freaking dare. Don't you California, my Missouri.
The states they govern. Because the cost of living is too high. And the cost of living is too high in part for regulatory reasons, in part for taxes. But the big problem is they just don't have enough of the things people need. Not enough homes, not enough energy, not a government capable of delivering. And they've been treating that as not a real problem. You were talking about your solar sign. California high-speed rail, it's a huge disaster, but nobody's ever done anything about it. If you tried to build it again, it would go the exact same way.
High-speed rail?
Yeah, California's high-speed rail.
I think we first passed it in 2008. Mm-hmm. I think they just voted about something about it again. It's projected. Just give up. Just to
yes.
Just to
yes.
Just
Forget
to build,
it.
I think from Bakersfield to Merced. Who the hell wants to go from Bakersfield to Merced? And they couldn't do that.
I went out and toured it. And the people building it were perfectly clear with me. Look, this doesn't work if we don't do LA to San Francisco. And they don't have the money to do LA to San Francisco. And they don't have the regulatory structure to do it. They have been clearing. They started clearing the rail track through environmental review. The whole point of high-speed rail is it's good for the environment.
Right.
They started clearing it through environmental review in 2012.
No, that's why you can't build the high-speed rail, is because the whole point of the high-speed rail is for the environment. No, you've got to destroy the environment to build the damn thing. You got to do eminent domain. You got to actually take people's property. I'm not advocating for eminent domain, by the way, here, guys. I'm saying that you have to do it if you're going to do something like that. And in California, they're so ass backwards. It's to make a profit. It's because people who live in San Francisco would like to go, who are wealthy, would like to go to Los Angeles, and they'd like to go there very fast and not have to jump on an airplane.
By the end of 2024, when I was fact-checking the book, it was almost done. The reviews were almost done. Yeah. And the thing that bothers me about it, in addition to we didn't get high-speed rail, is they didn't change it, right? Okay, huge failure. Learn something. Make it so it won't happen again. The problem is that the right, we've just been talking about this, the personality type of the right is autocratic now. And the personality type of the left is bureaucratic. And you can't govern if you are this obsessed with process. And you can see it in the outcomes. If you want to sideline dangerous populist right autocratic movements, you've got to offer people the fruits of effective government. If the places you govern are not advertisements for your governance, you are going to lose. Yeah.
And it's just depressing to live in a country where it still takes nearly 3 hours to get from Washington to New York. This is the great avenue, right? You can't get there in less than 3 hours. It should be 40 minutes on a real train. I couldn't agree with you more, but what I want to know is,
if you were different than what? If you had something like the maglev trains, the Japanese maglev trains between New York and DC, you could get between New York and DC in 40 minutes, and it's the economic boon that it would bring. But that's the thing, is that the left and the people who are in charge of these things, they don't care about the profit of the thing. They don't care about the importance of making a profit, so that there is a point in doing all this. If you make it that it's about protecting the environment, right? If it's about like protecting people's feelings and not hurting the ducks, you're never going to be able to build the damn thing. If you make it about making a profit, you will be able to build the thing. That is what these leftists do not understand.
What they're doing in the red states. So deregulate, lots of energy, lots of building.
In part, there are places where red states have it right. Look, Houston and Austin, when people move there, they build more houses. They just do. They build multiples more houses per 1,000 people who come in there than LA and San Francisco and New York City do. LA, San Francisco, and New York City should take a page out of Texas's book on this. The problem with a bunch of the red states is the vision of where they want to go with things, right? The fascinating thing to me about Texas is it's building as much clean energy as it is, even though the politics are anti-clean energy. The Texas governor, the Texas legislature, they keep putting up bills to make it harder, but because the default in Texas is it's easy to build, and building clean energy is profitable because of the Inflation Reduction Act and the technology and a bunch of other things, they're still building a ton of it.
Yeah, that's because it's Texas, not California. Don't California my Texas. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Your host, Austin Peterson here. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Please do click that like button. The weird static was from me bumping up the volume like far beyond what that clip really should have been able to tolerate. So thank you, Kermode Bear, for pointing it out. Why, oh, wild man. What's up, man? Welcome to the Wake Up America show. It's glad to see Kermode and Amy and Mighty Megatron and L Dubs and Joni Rankin and everybody hanging out in the chat. Did you guys click the like button yet? What about you, Mongoose? Did you click the like button yet? Please do so. If today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, we'd love to have you be a regular guest. Come back and join us every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Mondays through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time is the show's schedule. If you click the follow button in the chat, you will get a notification. You will get a notification when we go live, which is that 5-day-a-week schedule. People are sending text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. One listener texted in on Sunday, says, stop promoting the lies of the fudsters. Friday on my show at 50:30 regarding Elon Musk, whose electric car company, who's admittedly not necessarily that great for the environment. Tesla co-founder, current board member, oversaw the building of the Giga battery factory in Nevada, started his own company called Redwood Materials that recycles 95% of all battery materials. Check out the website and listen to him being interviewed on Ride the Lightning unofficial podcast. Yes, he says he has 44 solar panels for his house and Tesla. Wow, you certainly, Brian Parson. You have got it going on. We appreciate that. Thank you, Drake495, for clicking the like button. We appreciate that very much. It's a free way to support the show, and we are very grateful. Helps to grow the Wake Up America show and the 4 Liberty Network. Today is Tuesday, which means that tonight is rumbles.com/Culturama night. We've got Daniela Pensack, and directly after the Freedom Arcade, me and Stephanie hanging out, playing video games with the crew. Come and join us right back here at rumble.com/AP for Liberty after you watch Daniela at rumble.com/Culturama. Daniela's Taking Back Tomorrow Today, one of our newer shows on the Wake Up America show's 4 Liberty Network, is Culturama starring Daniela Pensack, 7 p.m. Central Time on the Wake Up America show's network, 4 Liberty Network. So check her out tonight, and then me and Stephanie hanging out, playing games with you guys. You did it. You unlocked the bonus content, guys. Thank you. We appreciate that. Oh, Joni, you're so lovely. She got her beach towel over at 4libertyshop.com. And thank you for supporting the Wake Up America show, Joni. We really appreciate that you've been such a stalwart of liberty, and your name shall be in the Pantheon. We're very grateful to everybody who helped us today to unlock the bonus content. We're going to play that right now. When we get back, we're going to talk about what it means to be a brutal American, the rise of the brutal American. This is how the bad guys act, says the Atlantic. We'll talk about that. What kind of brutal American are you? Drop your comment in the chat. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
60 years since President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and still, despite mountains of evidence, multiple investigations, and the passage of time, the majority of Americans simply don't buy the official story. According to a recent YouGov poll, more than half of Americans believe Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone. Just 23% accept the lone gunman explanation laid out by the Warren Commission back in 1964. That skepticism has become a permanent fixture in our national psyche. Now, in an effort to pull back the curtain, the U.S. government has released yet another massive batch of JFK assassination documents. Tens of thousands of them. And yet, instead of finally putting the conspiracy theories to bed, this latest release might just feed the fire. Because here's the thing, when you dump a mountain of redacted documents full of intelligence agency gossip, half-sourced reports, and cryptic memos, people don't feel reassured. They feel like there's something being hidden, even when there isn't. Some of the newly revealed files discuss surveillance of foreign leaders, phone taps, and Cold War-era intelligence gathering. Others reference Oswald's movements in Mexico City or CIA informants with murky connections. But there's no smoking gun. Nothing in these documents definitively proves or disproves a grand conspiracy. And that's exactly the problem. The longer the government withholds information, the more oxygen it gives to paranoia. Overclassification, labeling documents as secret long after the reason for secrecy has expired, doesn't just protect sources and methods, it builds a wall of suspicion. And every delay, every redaction, every half-release adds bricks to that wall. So even if the full truth was always mundane, if Oswald really was just a disgruntled Marxist with a rifle and a grudge, most Americans won't believe it. Not anymore. Why? Because in the modern era, conspiracy isn't fringe. It's mainstream. It's the lens through which millions of people interpret not just history, but current events too. And the JFK assassination is the grandfather of them all. The original sin that convinced a generation that the government can't be trusted. The more documents they release, the more people comb through them, hoping to find confirmation of what they already believe. And when they don't, they just assume the real truth is in the next batch, or the next cover-up. So, will these new files change anything? Probably not. The reality is, it's not about what happened on November 22nd, 1963 anymore. It's about what people want to believe happened, and the poisoned distrust that's festered ever since. Some mysteries stay alive not because they haven't been solved, but because people refuse to accept the answer.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.
Let me just add to that, and thank you. We just had a wonderful cabinet meeting, all aligned on certainly the effort to realign the government. But even at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, we've canceled a $300,000 contract educating on food justice for queer and transgender farmers in San Francisco. A similar contract we canceled in New York, again educating transgender and queer farmers on food justice and food equality. I'm not even sure what that means, but apparently the last administration wanted to put our taxpayer dollars towards that. We canceled a $600,000 contract out of Louisiana that was studying the menstrual cycles of transgender men, a $600,000 contract. We canceled another contract out of a university in the middle of the country that focused on getting more diversity, equity, and inclusion into our pest management industry. Again, these are nonsensical. It makes zero sense to use taxpayer dollars to fund these. I know these are just a few examples of the hundreds and hundreds that we have.
Brutal fraud. You damn right it is. Brutal. Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. The world's a better place with people like Trapper 220 in it. I just love America. I do too. What the hell? What the hell? Oh my God, no way. It's the Wake Up America show. Things are a little bit weird. Wink Winkleman's Wake Up America show. Things are a little bit weird here on the Wake Up America show. Wild, wet, and woolly. Don't get rode hard and put away wet. When Mighty Megatron's in the chat, it's time to party. He's a brutal American. Joni Rankin's a brutal American. The Brutalist. Calville, brutal American. Mighty Megatron, a mighty, mighty boss tone of brutality. The Atlantic writes about the rise of the brutal American and how Americans are acting like the bad guys. Let's read a little bit from this. Joey Maddow, shall we? A book festival in Vilnius, meetings with friends in Warsaw, a dinner in Berlin. I happened to be at gatherings in 3 European cities over the past several days. And everywhere I went, everyone wanted to talk about the Oval Office performance last Friday. Europeans needed some time to process this event, not just because of what it told them about the war in Ukraine, but because of what it told them about America, a country they thought they knew well. In just a few minutes, the behavior of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance created a brand new stereotype for America, not the quiet American, not the ugly American, but the brutal American.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Whatever illusions Europeans ever had about Americans, whatever images lingered from old American movies, the ones where the good guys win, the bad guys lose, and honor defeats treachery, those are shattered. Whatever fond memories remain of the smiling GIs who marched into European cities in 1945, of the speeches that John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan made at the Berlin Wall, or of the crowds that once welcomed Barack Obama, those are also fading fast. No. Aww. All right, cut the accent out. But here's what the piece says. It says, quite apart from their politics, Trump and Vance are rude. No! They are cruel. They berated and mistreated a guest on camera. They're talking about Zelensky. Why these women have a hard-on for Zelensky, I will never understand. And then boasted about it afterwards, as if their ugly behavior achieved some kind of macho win. Yes. They announced that they would halt transfers of military equipment to Ukraine and hinted at ending sanctions on Russia, the aggressor state. In his speech to Congress last night, Trump once again declared that America would, quote, get Greenland, which is a part of Denmark, a sign that he intends to run roughshod over other allies, too. These are not the actions of the good guys in old Hollywood movies. Well, stop comparing everything to movies, ladies. But of the bad guys. If Reagan was a white-hatted cowboy, Trump and Vance are mafia dons. The chorus, here we go, there's their mouth. The chorus of Republican political leaders defending them seems both sinister and surprising to Europeans, too. I never thought Americans would kowtow to that, one friend told me, marveling. Well, why, first of all, European.
Why are you gay?
Second of all, you must not know many Americans. You must not know any of us. So brutal. Europeans were shocked by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's Oval Office behavior. So Europeans being shocked is not new, and they've been whining since Reagan. And if you ask any Democrat, maybe not like the most centrist of centrist Democrats, right? But if you ask any Democrat these days, they hate Ronald Reagan almost as much as the Republican Party is starting to, but nonetheless, they despise Ronald Reagan. As a matter of fact, what I used to go on Russia Today to debate the communists over there that they still keep on TV, like Tom Hartman. You could see a lot of my old YouTube video debates of Tom Hartman, him and me just going back and forth. I used to wear my capitalism pin when I would go to Russia Today just to like, he used to get so pissed at it too, man. Tom Hartman, that old commie bastard, right? Progressive radio host. And I would wear my capitalism pin, and he's like, Richie Rich, as you're defending the rich people. I'm just like, hell yeah. Guys will just see a capitalism pin on Austin Peterson on Russia Today and be like, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. It's good to be rich. But Europeans being shocked is not new. They hate Reagan. They despise Reagan. So why is this woman here talking about the greatness of Ronald Reagan? Tom Hartman, he blames every modern problem that we have on Ronald Reagan. Because here's the thing. Their whole worldview, of course, is twisted in a reverse image of ours, right, as our opponents. They think FDR was amazing. They think Woodrow Wilson was a good president, one of the great presidents, right? They think that World War I, World War II presidents were some of the great presidents. If we're conservatives or libertarians, of course, we despise Woodrow Wilson and FDR. So here's the thing. We had nothing but, so from FDR, from Calvin Coolidge until Ronald Reagan, it was nothing but lefty Democrat presidents. I mean, no offense for, big Dwight Eisenhower fans, but I mean, Dwight Eisenhower was no conservative in a traditional sense, right? He was really his own thing, and we can debate Eisenhower later, right? His 91% tax rate. The liberals love Eisenhower because of the effect of the tax rate that they had, like a 91% top marginal income tax rate during the Eisenhower years. But of course, they ignore the fact that nobody actually paid those rates. We'll talk about Eisenhower and who built the roads and the highway system. We'll have those conversations later, guys. But from Calvin Coolidge to Ronald Reagan, that was the dark times, okay? There were no conservative presidents from Calvin Coolidge to Ronald Reagan. So when Ronald Reagan came about, and I say this is why a lot of conservatives need to stop turning their nose, or right-wingers need to stop turning their noses up at Ronald Reagan, because he represented a reversal from the trends of socialism and statism and leftism and LBJ and JFK and, the 60s and even, Richard Nixon himself, I don't think people really look at as any conservative necessarily, right? He really wasn't a conservative either. He was more of a foreign policy Republican, if you will. So conservatism was really unrepresented until Ronald Reagan. And then when Ronald Reagan hits, of course, the left freaks out about him and thinks that he is the cause, and his trickle-down economics are the cause of all of the modern problems, right? So Europeans, though, their views on Americans have not mattered since 1776, all right? America is not a global therapist, okay? Our leaders are elected to serve Americans, not to appease Europe's fragile diplomatic egos, all right? Trump ended this whole NATO deadbeat freeloading thing. He demanded 2% defense spending compliance, which Europe still fails to meet. Listen to this. As of 2024, only 11 of 31 NATO countries met their 2% GDP defense spending target. The U.S. spends more than double what most European allies do. We spend double of what most European allies do, okay? I don't want to hear any shit from Europe about Russia and Ukraine. I don't want to hear it. You don't spend on your own defense. Right, we're not your global therapist. Exactly, right? So they create this new stereotype, right? Not the brutal American, right? Well, let me say this. It's better to be a brutal American than a naive American or a pushover American, because one thing that we have learned, and that I have even learned from my days of, close to being an isolationist, right? Naive isolationist to non-interventionist to something in between now. The world respects strength. Brutality, no. Forthrightness, directness, realism. Yes. So no, not brutality. I would call what the United States is practicing forthrightness, directness, being real, right? And Trump and Vance's tone on foreign policy reflects the post 9/11 lessons. Don't sugarcoat threats. Speak plainly. It's not going to be anymore with politicians using shifty tones to try and obfuscate important discussions on matters of national importance, right? Compare Putin with Xi, right? Let's think about Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping. Do you think that they worry about hurting feelings? Do you think that they are concerned about that, or are they more concerned about what's really in their own best interests? The United States should pursue what is in the United States' best interests. They whine about Trump being cruel to Zelensky. Zelensky is not above criticism. Right? Zelensky is not above criticism. He's a wartime leader. He's asking for billions of American taxpayer dollars. Scrutiny is not cruelty, right? It's like, have you ever had somebody that takes something from you, or like maybe you had, I don't know, an employee or somebody, or you're a child or something like that, right? And there's this entitlement mentality, right, about what you give to them, right? So that it's like just kind of expected and understood, and there's no gratitude whatsoever, right, at all. There's no acknowledgement that the resources that you provide, your largesse, it does not come out of nowhere, right? And I could see that. As a matter of fact, I remember feeling humbled once, and as an employee, when I used to be an employee, an employer reminded us to say thank you to, like the HR said, say thank you to the bosses. That's how you guys get your health insurance. And I was kind of like, I saw some people kind of sniffing, and then I thought about it, and I was just kind of like, yeah, thank you. You're right. Thanks for the job. Since 2022, the United States has sent over $113 billion in military and economic aid to Ukraine. How much of that is traceable? How much of that is transparent? Of the $113 billion that went out the door of our money, yours and mine, how much of that actually we know that it was spent on this conflict, on America's best interest? I bet, how much do you think? Like, $1 billion, $2 billion, maybe $3 billion, right? In the Atlantic article calling us brutal Americans, they say that we want to stop aid to Ukraine and end sanctions on Russia. Why is that bad? Let's debate that openly. Is our endless involvement in foreign wars, is this good for us middle-class Americans, for we middle-class Americans? Is it good for us? Is this in our best interests, right? Sanctions haven't worked. Russia's ruble has rebounded. Oil exports soared to China and India. Ukraine fatigue is real, right? Americans are tired of funding a European border while our own border is wide open. Ukraine aid packages surpass FEMA disaster relief for American states like Hawaii, Florida, and Ukraine after major disasters. We're spending more money on that blunderous conflict in Europe than we are on our own American citizens. And here's the thing. You and I, we know how we feel about FEMA and disaster assistance. And I think even the Trump administration has acknowledged that that should be abolished and should be done by the states. Disaster really should be done in the states. And yet it is still a worthwhile comparison to say we are spending more money on this conflict in Europe than we are to protect our own citizens after a disaster. They're complaining about Trump joking about buying Greenland. It's a tar baby. The Greenland joke is trolling. They haven't figured it out, right? But there is a geostrategic truth behind it. Greenland has rare earth minerals. that it is a critical location for missile defense and Arctic dominance. Why is Denmark allowed to control a strategic resource if it can't defend it? They can't Denmark, if China or Russia want to take Greenland from Denmark, you know what the sad thing is that it is as shitty as Europe has become. Part of me thinks that they would hand it over that Denmark would rather hand over Greenland to China or Russia before they would hand it over to the United States. And what does that say about them more than us? Because what, we're brutal Americans? Why? Because we hurt your feelings? Right? Sorry, excuse me. Sorry that we burdened you with our friendship for paying for everything, for paying for the conflict to defend Europe, to defend you all. Sorry, we burdened you with our billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in unaccountable cash that probably went into a lot of European politicians' pockets as well, not just disappearing into perhaps Volodymyr Zelensky's pockets themselves. Sorry, we burdened you with our friendship and our money and our cash and our capitalism and our culture and our iPhones and our Hollywood and our New York and our DC and all the places that you come and visit here in Los Angeles, right in Florida. Sorry, we burdened you with our beautiful Caribbean destination vacations sorry, we burdened you with our Gulf of America and the beauty of the majesty of the United States. Sorry to burden you with our greatness. Right? Truman offered $100 million for Greenland in 1946. Did you know this? Right? Truman, Harry S. Truman, yes, look it up. $100 million to buy Greenland in 1946. Would have been a great deal. Would have been a good deal. Right? But that's Europeans, just like Canadians, their personality, at least Europe has their own culture. Canada, their whole culture is hating on the United States. Europeans, they miss JFK, they miss Reagan, they miss Obama speeches, they say. That's because they're used to American leadership as theater. That's why all the movie references. Because Trump and Vance are concerned about results, right? Not everything needs a soaring speech. Sometimes it's about action. By the way, JFK and Reagan, they were hated by the elites of their time too. Reagan was mocked as a cowboy, right? Does that sound familiar? Right? Now Europeans also say Trump lives in an alternative reality shaped by Russian propaganda. It's a classic smear. If you disagree with the war hawks, you must be Putin's puppet. Trump's realism about Russia is not pro-Putin. It's anti-fantasy. Right? The Mueller investigation found no collusion. It was a hoax. This trope should be dead. Trump armed Ukraine with Javelin missiles. Obama sent blankets and MREs. Right? Trump approved $47 million in military aid to Ukraine in 2017, a major upgrade from Obama, who only gave non-lethal support. The Europeans say Trump doesn't believe Putin breaks deals. Trump believes in leverage, not blind trust. He brokered Middle East peace deals, the Abraham Accords, because he understands power dynamics. Deals with Putin or Xi or whatever, any of these dictators, they require strength, not lecture diplomacy. You can't just sit there and lecture Russia about human rights and expect that they're going to give a shit. Here's the violin playing, the world's smallest violin playing My Heart Bleeds for You. No. They don't care. You have to have leverage. Trump understands this. Europeans complain Vance watches YouTube and won't visit Ukraine. Visiting war zones isn't the only way to understand war. Vance trusts data, history, and realpolitik, not just optics. He represents Ohioans. He represents Americans, not Ukrainian interests. Right? They care about jobs, inflation, border security. That's what we care about. Watching media skeptically is smart. In an age of propaganda from both sides, Europeans complain. Europe sees Trump as parroting Russian views. Europe is angry that Trump broke the script. He puts America first, not Davos or Brussels. America has been defending Europe since 1945. Maybe it's time they grow up. If you want U.S. support, match our commitment, right? Or stop whining when we demand accountability. Support among Americans for continued Ukraine aid has dropped below 50%. But what about the French and the British and the Danish people? They now dislike Americans. Boo-hoo. Europe doesn't elect our president. You don't get a veto over America's democracy. It's not a democracy, Austin. No. I know. These are the same countries who lecture us about guns and speech and faith, but they have rising crime, Islamist riots, energy crisis. We're going to take Missouri values over Macron every day. This administration canceled aid programs. We should cancel them. Charity begins at home. Trump and Vance treated Ukraine like a colony. No, they treated it like a client state dependent on U.S. aid because that's what it is. America has a right to demand respect and answers when we're bankrolling this war effort. Zelensky can't be expected to be treated like Churchill while banning opposition parties and canceling elections. America first. America first. Guys, you're amazing. Thank you so much. I love it when you guys get up and hang out with us early in the morning and you're dropping comments in the chat. And I love seeing new names and faces like Drake, 4549 or what have him. Joey Maddo, pretty sure it's his first time dropping comments as well. Trapper220, also first time in the chat. What's up, guys? Decision Points is basically becoming a regular, man. You're one of us. One of us. Become one of us if you are not one of us. If you click the follow button, guys, after you click the like button, like and follow. The follow button will turn on a notification in your Rumble app whenever we go live, which is 5 days a week, Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. I hope you guys will become regular guests. And as you exit through the Grift Shop. Guys, thanks for all you do. We love you. Booby, baby, you're wonderful. We'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow. Big Brain Time with Judge Andrew Napolitano on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
It's been over 60 years since President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and still, despite mountains of evidence, multiple investigations, and the passage of time, the majority of Americans simply don't buy the official story. According to a recent YouGov poll, more than half of Americans believe Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone. Just 23% accept the lone gunman explanation laid out by the Warren Commission back in 1964. That skepticism has become a permanent fixture in our national psyche. Now, in an effort to pull back the curtain, the U.S. government has released yet another massive batch of JFK assassination documents. Tens of thousands of them. And yet, instead of finally putting the conspiracy theories to bed, this latest release might just feed the fire. Because here's the thing, when you dump a mountain of redacted documents full of intelligence agency gossip, half-sourced reports, and cryptic memos, people don't feel reassured. They feel like there's something being hidden, even when there isn't. Some of the newly revealed files discuss surveillance of foreign leaders, phone taps, and Cold War-era intelligence gathering. Others reference Oswald's movements in Mexico City or CIA informants with murky connections. But there's no smoking gun. Nothing in these documents definitively proves or disproves a grand conspiracy. And that's exactly the problem. The longer the government withholds information, the more oxygen it gives to paranoia. Overclassification, labeling documents as secret long after the reason for secrecy has expired, doesn't just protect sources and methods. It builds a wall of suspicion. And every delay, every redaction, every half-release adds bricks to that wall. So even if the full truth was always mundane, if Oswald really was just a disgruntled Marxist with a rifle and a grudge, most Americans won't believe it. Not anymore. Why? Because in the modern era, conspiracy isn't fringe. It's mainstream. It's the lens through which millions of people interpret not just history, but current events too. And the JFK assassination is the grandfather of them all. The original sin that convinced a generation that the government can't be trusted. The more documents they release, the more people comb through them, hoping to find confirmation of what they already believe. And when they don't, they just assume the real truth is in the next batch, or the next cover-up. So, Will these new files change anything? Probably not. The reality is, it's not about what happened on November 22nd, 1963 anymore. It's about what people want to believe happened, and the poisoned distrust that's festered ever since. Some mysteries stay alive not because they haven't been solved, but because people refuse to accept the answer.